Welcome to New Tracks Live. New Tracks Live is the weekly meetup of the New Tracks modeling community that provides unique mentoring opportunities to enhance your modeling skills by connecting with talented modelers and manufacturers from around the globe who generously share their knowledge and artistic expertise. Build your confidence, refine modeling techniques, and share your projects with a supportive community of fellow modelers, all while enjoying the world's most rewarding hobby. Join us every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern on Zoom and YouTube for the live meetup. Missed a program? No problem. Individual show segments are uploaded to YouTube for convenient on-demand viewing. Be sure to connect with the New Tracks community by joining the New Tracks Facebook page, where you can interact with other modelers and see what they are modeling. Visit our website at www.newtracksmodeling.com to register to receive Zoom links for the weekly meetup and get more modeling information. And now, here is the host of tonight's New Tracks Live, Phil Edholm.
Welcome, everyone, to our May 20th edition of New Tracks Live. This is the live weekly meetup of the New Tracks community, where we mentor and share ideas and how to be better modelers. This was actually created by Jim Kello back in 2000 and has been a continuous way to grow and improve your modeling sense. And if you're a newcomer, welcome to the community. If you've been here a while, thanks for coming back. Before we start today, we'd like to thank our 3 platinum sponsors of New Track Mentoring. New Track Mentoring is actually the 501c3 nonprofit that supports New Tracks Live, as well as the New Tracks Scholarship, which we'll talk a little bit about later. These three vendors and train shows have generously sponsored this program, and so we'd like to run a little video thanking them for their support.
New Tracks Mentoring thanks the 2026 New Tracks Mentoring Platinum donors: Brennan's Model Railroading, the Amherst Railway Society, and the RailScale Model Train Show. Platinum donors support the New Tracks Mentoring Scholarship as well as New Tracks Live. For over 25 years, Brennan's Model Railroading has been offering products focused on the O-scale market, including Brennan's Better Ballast and a complementary line of natural ground cover materials. Brennan's also has craftsman kits with complete photographically illustrated instructions to create an outstanding model. The Frank Ellison Tribute series of kits take Ellison's scratch-built iconic structures to a new level using modern methods and materials. See the complete line of products on the Brennan's Model Railroading website. Use the QR code to visit. Offering products focused on the O-scale market, including Brennan's Better Ballast and a complementary line of natural ground cover materials. Brennan's also has craftsman kits with complete photographically illustrated instructions to create an outstanding model. The Frank Ellison Tribute series of kits take Ellison's scratch-built iconic structures to a new level using modern methods and materials. See the complete line of products on the Brennan's Model Railroading website. Use the QR code to visit. The Amherst Railway Society has been bringing modelers in the New England area together for 70 years. The Society sponsors the Railroad Hobby Show, held each January at the Eastern States Exposition Fairgrounds in West Springfield, Massachusetts. It is America's largest railroad-themed trade show. The event occupies 4 buildings on the fairgrounds and draws 25,000 visitors. The show has received the Walther Showmanship Award in recognition of promoting interest in railroads and model railroad hobbies. The Society sponsors other events and operates the Amherst Beltline's modular layout. Use the QR code to visit. The RailScale Model Train Show is the largest train show in the Mid-Atlantic region. For 40 years, the RailScale Model Train Show has been held 3 times annually at the Maryland State Fairgrounds in Timonium, Maryland. The events are generally held the first weekend of February, the second weekend of April, and the last weekend of October. Held in 3 halls, the train show features vendors, layouts, clinics, and special activities. The Great Scale Model Train Show features over 600 exhibitors and vendors. Use the QR code to visit.
Having some weirdness with Zoom this evening. Kind of interesting. Well, welcome. In addition to our 3 platinum sponsors, let's see if this works. And seem to be having some weirdness with Zoom tonight. There we go. We also have 5 brass sponsors who help sponsor the new tracks mentoring. LocoFi, who makes very anything Wi-Fi based decoders and a great system for running your railroad directly from your phone or Android or iPhone device. Santa Clarita Models, who builds the really cool foam holders for your models while you're working on them. O-Scale Central, who promotes O-Scale throughout the hobby. Millhouse River Studios, who builds some great models, some amazing turntables and other models, actually mainly manufactured in aluminum. And Kershaw Craftsman Kits. These 3 organizations also support New Tracks, but mainly supporting the scholarship. For 2026-27, the scholarship is actually going to award at least 3 $2,500 scholarships. These are our scholarships to young model railroaders pursuing a STEAM degree. And we'll talk about this a little bit later, and it's exciting. One thing about the scholarship program is we're now moving from kind of the gathering applicants to basically getting donations for the next year for 27-28, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. So for tonight's program, we have, I think, a pretty exciting program. Hopefully we won't run too long. We'll see how it works. We're going to start off with Jamie Bothwell. Jamie is going to give us some updates on some projects and some other things he's doing, kind of a bit about S-Scale. Then we're going to go to the second segment of Greg Cassidy's build of a RailScale models kit. A very cool kit he's been building, and we will talk about that more in just a moment. Then Stephen Groft is joining us. Stephen has started a relatively new company making 3D prints, and his real goal is to try to make details very accessible from a cost and getting them into your layout perspective. So Stephen's going to come talk to us, primarily let us see a lot of the products he's building. One of the cool things about 3D printing is we're now seeing a huge explosion in new items for our railroads, many at very reasonable costs, because you now can have lower volume items at reasonable cost, where it used to be with the cost of building a mold for injection molding, things tended to be fairly expensive, or they had to be high volume, which meant products were limited to those that could in fact have high volume in the market. So now we're seeing both unique items, but also items in different scales. So Stephen will talk a little bit about that from his perspective. And then finally, we have a video at the PCR convention a few weeks ago. We had sponsored a visit to the Sturgeon's Mill Sawmill. Sturgeon's Mill is a steam-operated blade sawmill. And this is actually my second visit there. The convention actually set up and funded to have the sawmill operating. It's operated by a bunch of volunteers. It's actually a 501c3 that's supporting rebuilding and running the sawmill. So we actually have an extended video of the operation of that kind of a sawmill, the different tools, everything from the saw to the feeders to the planers to actually how the steam engine works and is located. So that will be our program this evening. Before we start, we are going to have a build-along this evening. If you'd like to participate in the build-along, it's still time. You can order the model. It's Prater's Products. So it looks like a very cool model, and obviously getting to see it built by Greg, you're going to see a master in building how to build it and learn the techniques to build an amazing model. If you use New Cracks 20, you get 20% off on the model right now, and you can see the actual price is very reasonable for a model that's this cool to put on your layout. We use tiny URLs as a great way to let you get to things quickly on the internet. So if you type in tiny URL, either Prater-N or Prater-HO, that'll take you directly to that model. Finally, we need you. One of the ways we keep this program moving, and it's really all about mentoring. One of the things Jim Kello always used to say is, if you came to one of these meetups and spent time there, and you didn't learn something, you really weren't listening or paying attention. I think the other side of that is that every model railroader has something they've learned, some technique they've developed, something they've built they're proud of. There's really an opportunity to share that, to mentor each other, to extend the knowledge base. And it really doesn't happen unless people step forward and say, yes, I'm willing to do that. So if you'd like to come on and do a build of a product, show a build of a product, show something you've done, talk about some techniques you've done, whatever the topic is, just either shoot the QR code or jump onto, again, tinyurl.com/ntm present. That's a Google form, and you can fill it out. I'll contact you, and we'll go ahead and get you on the program. So with that, we're going to go ahead and start this evening. Before we start our first segment this evening, we actually have hang on, apologize for that. We have a quick video on S-scale trains. S-scale train, the S-scale the S group actually sponsors this with Jamie Bothwell, so we'll go ahead and run that little video.
Are you looking for something a little different in your model railroading? The National Association of S-Gaugers suggests you take a look at S-scale. An S-scale model is just 36% longer than an HO model, but it's 2.5 times the volume. The larger size translates to increased ease of maintenance, more durable details, and improved electrical and mechanical reliability. S-scale modelers use accurately proportioned wheels and track systems with KD-style couplers. Exceptional S-scale models and layouts are being built in both standard and narrow gauge. Locomotives and rolling stock are available from a number of manufacturers in both ready-to-run and kit form. Equipment is available both new and through an active secondary market. There are numerous manufacturers of track, buildings, vehicles, and details, both ready-to-run and in kit form, available for those who love to build. And many S modelers enjoy kit bashing and scratch building in the larger size S offers. To learn more, visit the website of the National Association of S-Gaugers. Here you will find the history of the scale, information about clubs in your area, see layouts and connect with current manufacturers and online groups, plus much more. In short, the website has everything you'll need to explore model railroading in S-scale today. Come on board and visit soon.
Yeah, S-scale is in many ways I refer to it occasionally as the Goldilocks scale. It really is the scale that optimizes, especially in standard gauge, both area you can model as well as details. So with that, Jamie, welcome and talk a little bit about S-scale.
Okay, good evening. First of all, before I talk about S-scale, I would like to point out that in the weekly notices that go out, I try to put in links to any sort of projects that are being built. So, there was a link that went out to the Prater's Products thing. And, when Bill Bantha was on a bit ago, I tried to put links onto whatever he was doing. So if you're getting the notices, you should also be getting links to these products that we're doing build-alongs or watch me builds or whatever for. So there's that. Anyway, moving right along, I've got a bit of a potpourri tonight. First of all, I have to give a shout out to my son, who's one of the newest mechanical engineers in the country or the world even. So he graduated from college today. Yay, go team. So, but anyway, I will share my screen with you here. That, and let's view our slideshow. Okay, and let me just close up all these people here. Okay, so today's news and views. We got a few things going on here. We got some news, we got some views. Why are you in the way? It's my little bar thing is in the way of my advance the slide thing. Okay, there we go. Let's try this. Okay. All right. News and views S-scale. Here we go. All right. So it's today. All right, so a couple of notes about the 2026 convention. I think I spoke about this a bit ago. It's in Dearborn, Michigan this year. They have announced the convention car. It's this Grand Trunk box car made on an American model's chassis, box car kit. You can order it in scale or high rail. This would be the high rail version. You can tell by the lovely coupler, but you can get a scale version also. Couple other there's a Thursday tour that's going to the Steam Railroading Institute in Owasso, Michigan. Not wanting to put up any copyrighted photographs of this, I just linked the Wikipedia page, so you can take a look at that if you want. Just type that into your search bar, and away you go, and that'll tell you a little bit about it. And of course, you can search up their website or whatever. So their website didn't really want to load. I was going to put up their direct website, but for some reason it did not want to cooperate. So anyway, there's a Friday tour to a place called Crossroads Village and the Huckleberry Railroad in Flint, Michigan, or just outside of Flint, Michigan. It's funny growing up there, and I never went to the place myself. But one of these, and I'm not going this year either. But one of these days, I am going to get to the Huckleberry Railroad. They have a section of 3-foot track that they run. I believe it's an ex Denver Rio Grande Western locomotive that they use. I'm not sure what kind, maybe a 282, but I'm not entirely sure. Again, this is the Wikipedia page, linking them if you wanted to take a look and see what they've got going. So those are that's upcoming in August. I think I quoted the dates on a recent S-Scale plan. And of course, you can visit the NASG.org as the video recently prompted you to do if you want more information. I believe they've opened up this year, opened up registration to non-NASG members. So if you're at all curious and you want to check us out, come on by. We'd love to talk to you. Okay, so I follow a fellow's blog that models in HO scale. He models early 20th century, I think 1926 or something like that is his date. And so he was posting on his blog lately that he bought a couple of trucks, highway type trucks from miniaturetanks.com. So I thought, well, I'm going to check out miniaturetanks.com. And sure enough, they had all kinds of tanks, and they would be happy to print them for you in S-Scale. So I thought, okay, I'll pick up. And this is just like Phil was saying, there's a chance to buy some stuff that you probably normally wouldn't get a hold of. And this is a model that I've said numerous times that S-Scale, one of the true benefits of S-Scale is that we have reasonably priced vehicles. And somebody has marketed a Sherman tank before, but the problem with it is it's one of these things that it fits the bubble on the plastic bubble on the packaging. It's really a little small for S-Scale. So, we have a lot of good vehicles that are really good for S-Scale, but the S-Scale tanks that were available were not. So anyway, I looked, and sure enough, you could get a Sherman tank, and I thought, okay, I'll get a couple of Sherman tanks and put them on a flat car. And I did some research, and I thought, well, I'm not really modeling during World War II. Like my modern layout would be set more like in 1952. So I'm thinking, okay, Korean War. So I typed in what was the most common tank in the Korean War, and I guess it's something called a Sherman Easy 8, which is, let's see, what's a Sherman, an A4? Whatever. Anyway, it's a M4A3E8. So E8 gave the Easy 8. So here's the Easy 8. So when it came, about 5 or 6 pieces, here I am trimming some flash off the turret, or not flash, but like a support off the turret, which holds up a couple of little widgets on the turret. And here they are, completed and awaiting painting. That's the same photo I used on the intro there where I had their URL up. So anyway, so that's where the tanks are. My opinion of them is that they're filament printed, so they are a little liney. I like to say that's my term. You can see the layers of filament a little, a little much, but the price was very reasonable. I think I paid about $20 to get both of these shipped to my house. So, like out the door shipping and everything, it was around $20. So that's not too bad. And they're going to sit on a flat car anyway, so it doesn't really matter if they're not the most perfect models. So anyway, I consider them to be a decent value, and I'm happy to have them. So I actually have an S scale Tiger tank too, so I can have World War II combat if I want. So these, I guess they did have some easy eights at the end, toward the end of World War II. So anyway, moving right along. Let's see. Whoops, I skipped one. How do I go back? Can I go back? Oh, there we go. Okay. So the York Train Show. I'm sure many of you have heard of the York Train Show, but the Lehigh Valley S-Gagers were at the York Train Show this year promoting the NASG. So here you see Dave Hine, with the fellow with the beard. It's not Santa Claus, it's Dave Hine. And that's, oh gosh, don't get old. It's really bad. Why can't I think of his name? Crap. Anyway, the guy in the beard in the back is Roger. The guy with the green hat is Mike. That's me smiling there. And then the guy in the end is Ray. And why can't I think of the other guy's name? Oh man. Anyway, all right. So sorry, I apologize. So we were there promoting the NASG, and this fellow steps up to me and he says, "You know, I built these models just kind of from scratch, and they're in SN42." We had to explain SN42 to him. He says, "I used HO scale track, but I built the models in S scale." And so here they are. And I said, "Well, that'd be great. Send me some pictures of them, and I'll use them as part of my segment." So he sent some pictures along, and I thought this Caboose or this combine car was really quite nice. Thomas Daggert, that's the fellow's name. And so he built these models in what would be SN42. So they're S scale models, but they use HO scale track. So this was I thought the nicest of the bunch. They might not quite hold up today's detail standards, but realistically, I think he did a pretty nice job. And if you look, he also detailed the interiors of this passenger car, so you can see there's sort of the seat area, the coach area of it, and there's the baggage car area. So that's that. So okay, another thing the other day. We've talked about Empire Trackworks before, but Empire Trackworks has this new product out. So what he's got here is, he will build you turnouts off of the Fast Tracks turnout system. And so and then he's also got a flex track system that looks much like this that I talked about, at some point last fall, maybe. But this new product is supposed to align those two lines of material. He's got this, the flex track that you sort of build your own, you put I think he'll sell you flex track, but he also, he'll sell you the ties and you shove your own rail in there. And now he's got, these turnouts, the ties for turnouts, and you'll notice that there are some fairly significant gaps in there, but that's where the printed circuit ties from the Fast Tracks jigs would fit in. So this just, sort of a drop in place tie system to use with the Fast Tracks built turnouts. And of course, then he'll also sell you the Fast Tracks built turnouts too. There's a little bit enlarged photo of it. You can see some of the detail on there. And again, that matches up with his Flex Track product. Also, same colors of the ties, nice, interesting tie plates on there and everything. I don't know that these have spikes on them. I think they might just be, the tie plates might just be flat. Whereas, obviously the Flex Track has the spikes that you slide the rail in underneath to hold the whole thing together. So there's that. Hugh Sin, that's who I can't remember. Hugh Sin, that's the guy. We toured Hugh Sin's layout a couple weeks ago. That was the missing guy from the NASG picture a couple slides back. Sorry, Hugh. Okay.
Hey,
So,
Jamie, before you get off of this, one thing I wanted to note that's really neat is, the PC ties tend to be thinner,
yes.
especially in larger scales. And it looks like he's actually, the connectors that go between the tie areas that are underneath the PC ties seem to be about the right height. So that when you put the T, it all lines up and works really well. That's pretty cool.
It's funny that you mentioned that because I've been staring at this picture for a couple of days now, but that very thing just occurred to me. I thought, oh, I wonder if he's, sized that out to, balance out the height difference with the PC ties. And it does look like he possibly has done that.
I mean, the Fast Track sells S gauge, narrow, S standard, and I think narrow gauge ties that are the PC ties that are the right size. And I bet these are actually set up for that. So you could just basically set
Well,
the PC tie right down into this, and it'll look great and be well positioned.
yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure about the O scale market, but I know the fast tracks now. If you buy, I don't know. I'm not an expert on printed circuit boards, but someplace he's gotten a thicker variety of printed circuit boards. So if you buy like just regular ties, like 8'6" ties, they are thicker now. But
Excellent.
the turnout ties are still the thinner layer, and I think that's because he's made a whole bunch of these jigs,
Right.
that are in the turnout. That like he's like a lot of people have bought the turnout tie jigs are fixtures. I'm told they're fixtures, and so like he keeps marketing the thinner ties because people have these fixtures. But as you said, I just looked at this and thought to myself, wow, I bet those fit just right. You glue that down and you could just slap the PC tie across those braces and you'd be perfect height. So yeah, I think that's probably true. So, and then there's one more sort of a close up of the thing. So didn't have to cut me off quite there, Phil. I would have had one more picture to show you that you could have talked over that. So anyway, but yeah, I'm looking at these now. He sent an email to, we have an S-Scale sort of a chat list or whatever that, a number of us are on. And he sent these pictures to the S-Scale chat list just the other day. So I went to his website and, to see like what information I could get on them. And I'll tell you the truth, there wasn't a lot. Okay. So like this product exists, but I can't tell you anything about prices or anything like that. So, I probably could have emailed him, but I graduation and all, this is a very busy time of year for me, especially this year, because my son is also graduating in addition to all the students that I teach as in my day-to-day professional job. So it's, I haven't had a chance to do that. So I can't give you a whole lot of information as to cost or availability, but I know he said that he's making at least number eights and number sixes in standard gauge, and then he said that he's going to make an SN3 version, and I believe the SN3 version does not have the tie plates. So anyway, so there's that. Okay, so there's his address, there's his email. You can check that out. Take a look if you're interested. And of course, he's also got, I believe, HON3, ON3, ON2.5, whatever. He's got a number of fast tracks. He doesn't just make S scale. So, if you say, okay, this S scale stuff's cool, but, Phil says it's Goldilocks, but I'm too stuck in the HO world or the O scale world, he will still make you a turnout. So you take a look at his stuff, and you might be pleasantly surprised. Okay. So I showed you the layout I was working away on, and I made a connection. I said that I had a piece that was like the height of a door, which is 6.5 feet, and I put another 3 feet onto that. So I had two pieces of layout that were about 9.5 feet long, and of course this layout doesn't have a permanent home. And so I thought, well, I better put it back in the basement to store it. And when it was 9.5 feet long, I really couldn't get it back down in the basement. So I said, well, I guess the layout is going to lean more toward portability. So I took my 9.5 foot piece and I cut it in roughly a 4 and whatever foot. I took the nearest cross piece to 4.5 feet. I cut it off. Okay, and so the first one I whacked through it, and of course you remember that dark brown part is all hollow core door, and so my relatively heavy duty saw kind of ripped that to shreds. So after I did one of them, I got smart or smarter, yeah. Anyway, and so I used my little fine saw to do that. And of course, since the wood's only like a 1/16 of an inch thick, it didn't take very much to cut through it at all. So I just cut through each layer one at a time, and it made a much nicer job of it. So my plan is to, and I've actually begun cutting the wood for this. My plan is to put sort of an L-shaped bracket underneath this, and bolt into the sides of it. So it'll be, so the layout is the plan is to, again, it's still not necessarily looking at to be portable, but I just made it a whole bunch more portable than it was. So, but the plan is to put sort of a 2 foot long L-shaped bracket kind of under where that cross brace is on either side, and then bolt the layout to that, and then hopefully that's enough to stand it up, without another leg in the middle, where the joint is. So that's my goal. Summer's coming. I'm almost here, almost time to have more time to work on this stuff. So hopefully, we can get it done, make some more progress. All right. And I think that's about all I've got tonight. So thank you for your kind attention, and we'll see you in a bit.
Super. Thank you, Jamie. Any questions for Jamie?
Yeah, I've got a question. Jamie, it's Greg. On the combine that the gentleman built for SN 48, SN 43, 42. Could you tell from the photo, did it have HO trucks or did it have S scale narrow gauge trucks on it?
It looks to me like it has HO scale trucks.
Well, okay.
So yeah, I mean, just from my 50-yard view of it, he didn't have he sent me those pictures. Like he just stepped up and started talking to us, and I said, "Oh, that'd be great. Could you send me some pictures of the stuff? And I could put you on Nutrax." And so he sent these pictures, but I never held the models myself. But just looking at the photographs, they do look relatively small. So I think they're actual HO trucks.
Okay. Well, it still is a nice piece. Thank you.
Yeah. I thought he did a really nice job of the combine. It's a really neat car. Like I said, I'm a passenger car guy, so it's kind of cool, and it's got all the interior. He scratch built all the interior and everything. The whole thing is scratch built. So, but
You couldn't see the underside of it though, because I know that's your passion.
that's just part of the gig. I like the insides too. So I mean, yeah, sure. I'm never as happy as when I'm crawling underneath a passenger car. But yeah, it's air conditioners. My lifelong quest to understand air conditioners. So anyway, anything else?
Any other questions for Jamie? Well, thanks, Jamie. That was great. I think that turnout said, starting in S scale, I imagine, and actually Alan, I think, is actually on the YouTube. And so I asked him if he wanted to make any comments. If he does, I'll relay them later. But that seems like a very interesting way to provide turnouts, the ties underneath the Fast Tracks turnouts.
Yeah, Fast Tracks offers a similar product in wood, laser cut wood. I forget the name of them, but they offer two things. They offer one, I mean, they have in the past, I haven't looked lately, but they offer sort of the same thing with the holes cut where the printed circuit ties would be. And then they offer another thing where you have like the pattern of the turnouts is cut into the ties.
Right.
So like you would just hand spike, like you're not using their fixture to build the turnout, but you would use the ties with the laser cut markings in them to build the turnout. So, and one of them I think is called a quick stick, but I don't remember which one's which.
Right.
So he's got cute names for all the stuff, so.
That's true.
Like, yeah, there's like the thing that cut, he's got a thing called a tiebreaker.
Yeah.
Like it cuts the ties to length, he calls it a tiebreaker, and there's all these whatever. He's got cute names for stuff anyway.
That's excellent.
Okay.
Well, thanks again.
All right. Thanks for having me.
So now we're going to move on to our next section, which is a My Build with Greg. Before we do that, or build along, excuse me, with Greg, before we're going to do that, we're going to actually run the My Build video and talk about our upcoming My Builds.
Don't miss the monthly Nutrax Modeling My Build event. My Build is where the modelers of Nutrax show what they have been building. See amazing modeling with some My Builds featuring specific topics for modeling. If you would like to have your models included in the My Build, please email your modeling photos to chriscourse@railrunner130@hotmail.com. If you are a first-time My Build participant, please include a photo of yourself.
Well, it's exciting because we are actually coming up on a My Build next week. The next My Build will be next Wednesday, May 24th, and that will be a anything goes submission. The submission deadline for that, actually May 27th is the date. It'll be May 24th, so it's 7 days from today, since today's the 20th. So if you're interested in participating, get your pictures in to Chris. You can send them to Chris Course at 130@hotmail.com. I'll put that in the chat, both here and on YouTube. And get those to Chris by May 24th so you can put them in. If you're doing a first-time participant, please send Chris a headshot of yourself, a picture of you. He does that on the intro so we know who you are. And also write in an email just a few words about the model in case for some reason you can't be here, so Chris can talk a little bit to your model without you being here. The other thing that Chris asked me to talk about was he is closing off on the voting for the categories for next year. Every quarter we have a focus program, a specific category that we choose. We call them the My Build Challenges. So he's put together a list of potential challenge topics, some pretty cool and interesting things. So if you take the time to either use the form URL there, you'll have to type that and also put that in the chat for those of you in the chat, or just shoot the QR code and vote on what you'd like to see for next year. We only have 2 submissions so far for next week. So we'll ask everyone to consider submitting for next week and going for there. So with that, it's my pleasure to introduce Greg Cassidy, and Greg is going to talk today about what I think is a really cool model. I'm actually almost upset that it's not available in O scale. It's only available in HO and N, and it's just those tiny scales. I just wish we'd see it larger. Anyway, Greg, take her away.
Bill, I know you could probably scratch build it if you wanted to in O scale. All right, let me go ahead and bring my presentation on up, and I'll get it into slideshow and get my laser. So as Phil said, tonight I'm going to show you week 2 on the build along for Prater's products from RailScale models. And tonight we'll be looking at assembling and painting the walls, painting the windows and doors, and a couple of interior options. And as before, I'll be showing you how I did it. You're, of course, welcome to do it any way you want, but this may give you a few tips of what to look for while you're working on it. So if you remember last week, we covered what was in the kit, and then we went ahead and cut and glued our bracing in place. And we went ahead and stained the walls along with doing a couple other little detail items. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was last week I showed you how I make the corner joints for a building like this. And what I will do is put my bracing right against the very edge of a gable end wall, and then glue my corner trim up against the edge of the wall. And that gives you this nice little L shape right here. And you can just snuggle your sidewall right into there, and you apply the glue along here. And if everything that you've done is nice and square and straight, you get a really strong joint with no gaps or anything like that. And if you remember last week, I told you that on this kit, one of my areas of interest is this area right here. And that's because you have edge trim here and here. And when these 2 walls go together, you want those to line up perfectly, because on a real building, unless it's falling apart, they're going to line up. And if you don't get those lined up, it's really going to stand out, because that's kind of a focal point of the building. So in doing that, those are the first 2 walls that I glued together. And I used one of my typical methods of putting one wall down flat and using a 1, 2, 3 block for the other wall. And then as long as all of this bracing is the same size, you can put another one in there, and that'll give you a nice 90-degree joint right there. And you go ahead and let that dry. Now for this, since we wanted those 2 corners that go over the covered entryway to line up, you want to make sure you're looking at that as you're gluing the wall together, and that as the glue dries, that they're nice and lined up. And as I said last week, if you're not putting the trim on at this time because it's going to be a separate color, then you want to make sure the 2 walls actually line up right here, so that when you do put the trim on, they'll line up as well. So once that was dried, I did a little more dry fitting to check how everything went together. And in my case, I had the edge trim here and here, and then this piece of edge trim goes on the covered interior. And so I just set it in place to make sure everything looked okay. And this edge trim should be butting right up against that piece, and this should be butting right against your piece over here. And you want to make sure that this space is the correct size for the garage door that you'll be putting in there later. And you have a choice of two different garage doors, but they're both the same size. So once that was all done, then we put together the rest of our walls. And so for the main building, I put together the other two walls. That gives me two L's, and I'll usually build a structure like that and then put them together later. But for the little house, there's only three walls to it. So I put all three walls together at one time. But then after that was dry, I did cut a little brace and just put it in there. And that was so that if I was working on it, I didn't put any strain on these corner joints, and that brace will be hidden once the building is put together. So I just glued it on the inside of these two pieces of bracing wood. And then I took my two L shapes for the main building and glued them together and made one structure out of it. Now, at this point, I plan to paint my building after it was put together. If you were painting your walls before you put it together, you may have already done that. But when I want to paint something and I haven't picked a specific color already, I like to do a couple of tests. So if I can find some wood, like the siding, I'll do them on that. And in this case, we had this piece that the two wing walls were cut out of, so that was perfect. So I tried a couple different yellows, and I ended up picking this daybreak yellow. It looked the best, and I put it over the stain that I had already put on the building. Now, I call the way that I apply this paint dry brushing, and it's dry brushing in a sense, but it's not the kind of dry brushing that one might think of if you're adding highlights to something such as a figure or a piece of equipment. And that's when you're usually using something like a white or a silver paint to add highlights. And usually in those cases, you'll use something that's called a mop brush. When I'm putting dry brushing onto a building, I'm using a filbert brush. And the big difference between these is both have kind of a crescent shape, but the mop brush is round, whereas the filbert brush is almost flat. And one of the things about dry brushing is it's really easy to add highlights or to add shading to an item. And I'll show you an example on something else that I've been working on. This particular plow was painted orange, and then I used a mop brush to do dry brushing, and I brushed on this kind of gray color. And that gives you the impression that the paint is worn away and the metal is starting to show behind it. And that's the same kind of dry brushing that you might go ahead and use on a figure or something else if you're highlighting it. My dry brushing, I call it that because I'm sort of using the same technique, but I'm getting a different effect. I'm putting the paint on my brush and I am wiping some of it off, but I'm not wiping off as much as I would be if I was just adding highlights. And then I'll lightly put the brush over my stain, and it gives you this kind of effect where you're not putting on a solid coating and you can see some of the stain through it, and you get a little bit of a variation. So once you've done the entire building, you have a variation of areas that have more or less paint and the stain is showing through. And I just used the yellow paint the way it was. Now, when I was painting the house, which I wanted to have white, I was using a chalk paint, and it's a little bit thicker. So I added a little bit of Liquitex Flow Aid just to thin it out a little bit. Not so thin that it would run as I was putting it on, because I was still using the dry brushing technique, but just so it wasn't so thick that it would glob up. And it gave me pretty much the same effect as I had gotten using the yellow paint. And this is how they come out after I've done my dry brushing technique. Now, the one thing I hadn't painted yet was the wing walls. And this is something that you'll need to decide upon what color you should paint them. If your main building and house are the same colors, then obviously that'd be the same. But if they're going to be two different colors, you have to decide, were they added when this building was added? Well, that's kind of what I figured, was that the house was already there and they added the large building, so the wing walls would be the same color as the main building. So I went ahead and painted them the same color using the same technique. Now, after all of that dried, I like to go over it with this hunter line stain that's called greige. And it's a mixture of gray and beige, the color is. And I'll put a light coating of that over everything. And what it does, it just kind of blends the shades together. So you don't have quite as much of a difference between areas that have been dry brushed. And it also slightly darkens it. Now it's time to move on to the windows at this point. And the tissue windows have a very fine grain already cast into them. For an older building, I like to add a little bit more. So I've got this wire tool that I use, and that just scratches a little bit more grain in there. And I tend to use that on a lot of windows on older buildings that I'm putting together. Then after I had done that, I go ahead and cut them off of all the frets, and I use a sanding stick to clean up where all the little nubs are. And then I go ahead and tape them down to a piece of cardboard, getting ready to paint them. And this is if you're using a spray can or airbrush. And I was using an airbrush, and I was painting them in off-white, which is similar to the color of the house, which is what I wanted to do. And then once they were dry, I bring them back over to my workbench. And in order to get a kind of a weathered look on them, sort of like peeling paint, I use a little bit of gray paint and a piece of sponge that's very irregularly shaped, and just lightly dab it on all of these. And that gives you this kind of an effect. And it makes it look like peeling paint. And then once you've taken them off of the cardboard, this is how it comes out looking. I also went ahead and airbrushed the laser cut pieces, which are also going to be the garage doors and the vents that get put on. So they should have the same type of peeling paint effect. And I went ahead and did that to them as well. And then after doing that, I like to dry fit the windows in place and just see how it looks. I do a lot of dry fitting because that gives me the chance to see what it's going to look like. And if I want to change something or want to go for a slightly different look, I can do it at this point because nothing's been really glued together yet. And it makes it easy to see where you're heading towards, basically. Now, a couple different interior options. I wasn't going to be putting an interior in mine, but you may want to. So in my case, I just painted the interior of both of the buildings black. If you're putting an interior in yours, you may want to paint the walls whatever color that you want. I did this so that if people are looking through the windows, they won't be seeing the bracing in place or any of the little joints that I might have made. And later, I'll show you how I put a view block in there as well. Now, if you do want to do an interior, I'd suggest this building would be great for putting a second floor in. And I'll show you how I did that on a different building that I built a while ago, but it was very similar to this one. I just put my bracing down the middle, and then the bracing on the ends, I left it gapped, and then I put in some supports for the second floor, right where the second floor would tend to be. And then after I glued my 3 walls together, I cut a floor out of a piece of task board, and I only had to notch it for the 2 pieces of bracing that went all the way through. And then I put more supports on this one and glued the 4th wall in place, and that supports the floor all the way around. And that's an easy way to add a second floor to a building. If you want to do an interior, that really helps. Now on the building we're working on, you'd probably have to cut out this area where it meets up with the covered entryway. And one of the other things that we talked about on the first week was the nail holes that I put in. And I showed you that very, very fine ponce wheel that I have, and it puts tiny little holes in. Well, once you paint the building, they almost disappear. So one thing that I'll sometimes do is use a watercolor pencil to kind of accentuate them. And I'll just draw a very fine line following where I had used the ponce wheel to put the nail holes. And since it's a watercolor pencil, I then take my brush, dip it in the water, and I'll run it right down that line, just kind of smearing it a little bit. And then it comes out like this, looking like the nail heads got a little bit rusty and the rust was starting to creep into the wood. And you can take this effect as far or as lightly as you want, because the watercolor pencil is really easy to almost remove if you want to. So you almost have to be careful not to do it too much. And then this is the effect once it's done and how it comes out. So that's where we're going to stop now. Next week, we won't be doing this because it's going to be in my build. So week 3 will be on June 3rd, and we'll be installing the window glass, installing the windows and doors, and assembling and installing the roof cards. So I hope you enjoy the build, and that's it, host, or that's it, Phil.
Thanks, Greg. That was great. I really love that tip around using the watercolor pencil and then the water. That's a great way of emphasizing the holes there and making them look good. And using a
Watercolor
Bothwell.
pencils are so useful for creating rust, for creating burnishing, where metal might be showing through. I've got 5 packages of all different colors. You can use them for dirt. And, being water soluble, you can just move them around. So they're great. And if somebody hasn't experimented with them yet, I suggest you give that a try.
Are they an item you buy at an art supply, or do you buy them on
You
Amazon?
can. A couple of years ago on my YouTube channel, Greg Cassidy's Workshop, I did a comparison between a package of the AK water pencils and a package of 50 water pencils that I actually bought for the same price at Michael's, I think. And they're similar. The AK ones are a little bit better, and they're also aimed towards modelers. They have, 3 different shades of rust and 5 different shades of dirt and stuff, whereas the 50 pack has pink, purple, bright red, blue, all those colors. But it had enough colors that I could compare a couple, and it was pretty much apples to apples. So you can find them at other places, but just like so many other things in the hobby industry, the AK ones are specialized for the colors that we usually go after.
It's kind of a pencil version of pan pastels. That's really interesting. We should put a link for that at some point in the chat. So that was great, Greg.
Or
any
someday I'll
questions?
come back and do a little clinic on it.
Excellent. Any questions for Greg?
I don't have a question, but I do want to ask him about his when you were using Liquitex, was that photo flow aid?
Yeah, flow aid. It's something that you can mix in, and I'll tend to use it primarily with Craftsman paints because, they're usually a little thicker than the hobby paints that we like to work with. But it depends on what paint and what color you get. There's really no rhyme or reason as to why some are thicker than others. But flow aid will thin it out and allow it to flow better. Whether you want to put on a heavy coat or whether you want to do some type of dry brushing like I was doing.
That's similar to why I use Kodak Photo Flow, because that's what I have, and I don't have the Liquitex.
Yeah, it's a very similar product. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if they're identical.
H-hole peeled paint is hard to do, and yours was excellent on that white structure.
Yeah, well, it ends up being easy to do just using those steps.
But you did an excellent job on that because it really looks like good peeled paint for that scale.
Well, thank you, Richard.
You're welcome.
Oh, excellent. Any other questions for Greg before we move on?
Just a comment that the close-up pictures were great. You did a super job with those.
Well, thank you, bud.
Absolutely. That was a great build, Greg. Thanks very much. And we'll look forward to
Still have 3 weeks to go.
3 weeks to go. We'll start after the My Build next week. So next week will be a bit of a hiatus. And so Greg gets a week off. Thanks again. So with that, we're going to now move on to our next segment. And our next segment, before we start that, which is going to be Stephen Groft, we're going to run the New Tracks Mentoring Scholarship video and talk a little bit about the scholarships for this year.
Are you a model railroader going to college in academic year 2026-27? Apply for the New Tracks Modeling Mentoring Scholarship. For 2026-27, 3 individual $2,500 scholarships will be available for model railroaders pursuing a STEAM degree. Science, technology, engineering, arts, and math are all key parts of model railroading. You can apply online at the QR code shown. Model railroaders can support the New Tracks Modeling Mentoring Scholarship, the only national scholarships for model railroaders from a nonprofit organization. Donate online on Zephy. All donations are tax deductible.
Well, so that's exciting, exciting, the scholarship this year. We're moving from, over the next few weeks, from gathering applications to actually beginning to raise money for the next year's scholarship. So if you have a chance, please visit our Zephy page, make a donation. $5, $10, $50, $100. It all helps. It helps us give scholarships to these young model railroaders. We have about, I think, 6 or 7 applications so far, and we tend to see a lot in the last few weeks. It's a surprise that college students actually procrastinate a lot. So interesting time for all of us. So with that, our next segment is actually one of our vendor focus segments. One of the things that's really exciting in our hobby today is that we have a lot of new modeling companies, and we have actually today with us Stephen Groft. Let me get Stephen up here, and Stephen's going to talk a little bit about his company and what he's doing. So I need to get him to unmute, and we will get you up here on the screen. There you are, Stephen. Welcome.
Hello.
So Stephen is a long-term model railroader, has done some different things in model railroading. I'll let him talk a little bit about that. What he's going to talk about today is a company he started called 3G Resin Prints. And I think you probably figure why it's 3G instead of 3D, but I'll let him explain that to you. So we've actually got a couple of slides here and a number of pictures of the detail models, parts that he's building. So here we go. Hang on just a second. Let me do a change here. I'm going to go ahead and do this. There we go. Go ahead, Stephen.
Well, good afternoon. It's my first time. I really don't know where to start, but I'll give you kind of a history on how I got started. I've been a long time model railroader. Started with my grandfather, and then my dad, he carried it on, and I got into had my kids, got into my late 30s, early 40s, and decided one day to fix up an old AHM River Rossi 440 steam locomotive for my dad that he always had running around the Christmas train layout. And as you know, those were old ABS plastic frames and absolutely horrible once they ran on too tight of a radius for too long. Well, I ended up cutting the chassis apart and scratch building with a file, Dremel, and soldering iron a brass chassis and turned it to DCC with sound, got it to running, and I was hooked again. When my twin brother found out about it, we decided, hey, we got room in his basement. We're going to build a layout. After about three and a half years, three and a half years, we decided to change it because I went to an operating session and got him hooked. Then my older brother got in on it. 4 renditions later, we now finally have our operating layout and tied into a wonderful group of operators that operates on Dave Turn's layout in Hanover, Pennsylvania, called the West Penn Family Lines. Great group of guys. Well, and to make a long story short there, we found out real quick that you can build a layout framework, buy locomotives, buy cars, and get trains running And that's the cheap part of it. The details is where the money really lies. And we decided to get a 3D printer. This was about 10 years ago. And we fiddled around with it for a little bit and made some of our own stuff. I honed my skills a little bit, all while having my own little side business in DCC installs. And that really never took off. I mean, I like to do it, but at the same time, it can be a really niche market, especially. And so I'm like, you know what? I just felt better doing it for friends. And as time went on, I got better with printing. And here last Amherst, well, this past one up in February, well, end of January, a buddy of mine, Motrack Models, Jeff Adam, was we were up there and he asked me, he said, hey, he goes, can you print me a couple things for some of my kits? Yeah, I can give it a shot. Why not? He said, well, print them and bring them down to the Timonium show, beginning of February. All right. So I did. I took them down there and I never got to see the show. I got bombarded by so many people with my prints, about my prints and just saying, oh, how good they are and this and that. And Jeff loved them. And I decided, hey, after not being able to get to see the show and then a whole week to 2 weeks having 10 to 15 calls a night of people wanting me to print for them, I looked at my wife and I said, maybe I ought to look into this. And that's how this started. So I spent the next month and a half getting the legal side of it taken care of. And the following month, got prints up and running and stocked up and went to the April Timonium show. And it was an absolute success. I couldn't believe the support that I had from it. And when I got done with that, I got hit by a couple, talked to from a couple hobby shops. And to make a long story short, within a week, I ended up being in my product being supplied to Yankee Dabbler in New Jersey, Mainline Hobby in Blue Ridge Summit, PA. Blue Ridge Summit, PA, and White Rose Hobby, which is in York, which is about 10 minutes away from me. And was asked to make an appearance at the Bunker Hill Train Show in West Virginia. So I did, which is where Jeff Jordan ended up running into me, and he said about this possible podcast, and ran into a bunch of famous guys over there. I call them famous, but like Al Pugliese, Jeff Jordan, a handful of guys, and the support was just beyond belief. I couldn't believe it. Loco Joe down in West Virginia was a real advocate for me, and it just took off. So I came home and I opened up my website, built my own website, put them all in there, and was putting ads up on Facebook on my personal page, which I had my business page, 3G Resin Prints, tied to the personal page. And all of a sudden, Facebook said, you can't prove that you're 3G Resin Prints. We're disabling your account. It was a godsend because they didn't let me appeal it. I ended up having to open up a brand new account. This time I opened it up under 3G Resin Prints and then tied my personal page to it. And luck behold, I'm looking for model train groups and whatnot and joining them. And next thing I know, I get a friend request from Mike Buddy. I don't know if any of you know who Mike Buddy is with What's Neat This Week. And I was in the middle of Walmart doing shopping with my with my wife, and I took it, and we kind of hit it off. And he told me, he goes, "Hey," he goes, "I just friend requested you." He goes, "Looking at your stuff, looking on your website." He goes, "Can you send me some stuff? I want to put it on the What's Neat this week." So I did. That just aired this morning, and I was shocked when 8 hours after it aired, all of a sudden I had 30 within an hour. All of them within an hour had 30 sales on my website. Like, wow. Okay. Now keep in mind the website is only 2.5 weeks old. But everybody's been telling me, hey, your stuff is absolutely phenomenal. It's you can't see the layer lines. It looks injection molded. How do you do this? And there's a couple key things that I've learned over the years of doing it for myself that a lot of professionals do that they don't tell. But the whole point behind it is I'm not a rich man by any means. I'm sure a lot of us aren't. And I look at it and I go, if I'm making a little bit of money to keep it going, why can't I share this with everybody? And I make it affordable to the masses. So my whole point was that I do my own designing also. I have other people design for me too, but my whole point behind it was let's share the wealth and, make quality, precision designs that are accurate and realistic for an affordable price. And it has taken off. People have really grabbed a hold of that and run with it. Which, thank you to everybody that has. I really appreciate it. I make HO, N. I'm looking to expand into O scale. Hopefully I get the O scale done before the next show at Timonium. And I just applied to be able to go up to the Amherst show in January. And just got approved for my Massachusetts sales tax ID. But it has been a wonderful experience, the warm welcome with everybody. I also do custom prints. If anybody wants custom things done, I'm open for ideas, because the bottom line is the customers, this hobby is what drives this business. And it's not really the printing that drives me. It's the relationships with the people. For instance, I have, if you see some things out there I can see them up here on the computer.
Yeah, Steve, we've got the shot up your website. We can talk a little bit about the products, and we've got a bunch of product shots. So.
Yeah. One thing I don't see on there is something like this. I make I don't know if you guys, can see it. It's a 30-yard HO scale dumpster. One of the key things that is a selling point for me is the quality resin that I use. I use a very high-end quality resin, more for the industrial applications, that is meant for anti-warping, drillable, tappable. Don't get me wrong, it can warp if you don't do the right steps the whole way, such as curing. But I don't know how well this picks up on the top. I don't know how accurate that looks. Ooh, try to get it to autofocus here. On the top here,
you have to move it. You have to move it back. You have to move it back a little bit. You're too close.
I'm almost back to me. Yeah, it won't come up then. You can't see where the supports are, where they make contact with it. The one thing that I do is I have extremely small supports. For that reason, one of the things a lot of people don't tell you is that when you're printing something, there's a thing called blooming. When you take a a product off of the supports that prevents it before you cure it. A lot of people cure it on the supports and then break it off, which lets a lot of hassle for you customers. And I'd rather that not happen for you. So I figured take it off. And I found by doing that also does another thing. It takes the stress out of the product when you take it off the supports. As soon as if you cure it when it's on the supports and you take it off after it's cured, all of a sudden you get to see, you ever see a bad 3D print that has this bow and warp to it? It looks like crap. It's because of the built-in stresses when you're curing it on the supports. So I take it off ahead of time to try to help prevent that. But yeah, I mean, it's been a great experience. If there's anything anybody wants to see specifically, I mean, I don't know if you saw, anybody remember the old Jordan trucks? I actually had a buddy of mine, Greg might know him. His name's Jim Mooney. He's a real good friend of mine. He had redesigned the old Jordan trucks. He just gave me the rights to print them and is doing a lot of designing for me. But this is an old Mac. All the beds are interchangeable. It's a
I tell you what, Stephen, showing them like that doesn't show very well. Let's show the slides, because those are all in the slides.
I would. Yep.
Yeah, so I think it's a lot better to look at the slides. So let's go ahead and walk through the slides. These are some of your products. Yeah, hang on. So here is actually that dumpster you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You could talk a little bit about it. This is an HO.
Yes.
Okay, so yep.
Actually rendering it for N scale. Actually, just rendered it. It's on the printer right now.
Excellent. You've got a number of products here that you have.
Showing, Phil.
Yeah, it's not showing.
It's not,
there.
huh? Hang on.
Look.
Hang on. Let me come back and see here. What's going on with my?
It was up and then went down.
Yeah. Keep in mind some of these pictures.
Is that there now?
No.
If he gets them up here, some of the pictures.
Why is this saying I'm not screen sharing?
Just double click your full screen share. There.
There you go.
You got it now? Okay.
Yeah,
there we go.
it's up.
Now, some of the pictures that you'll see as we go through them, you'll see what looks like layer lines. That was with the new cell phones have an extremely great camera, and I forgot to take the resolution down a little bit. In real life, they're not really there. They just show up when you get a really good picture. And I went from what they call 50 print layers down to 20. So now everything, there's no layer lines on any of them. But all these, like you see, there's a 2-foot, I call that a 2-foot spinnable air vent, the kind that you see on like a restaurant or whatnot. And a scale 28-inch traffic cone. I see them all the time. Those are actual, the one on the left is a 3x4x6 wooden crate. They are actually 3 foot by 6 foot by 4 foot by 6 foot scale. The center one is a 4x4x8, and the right one is a 4x4x4. I need to take new pictures of them. There's something here's on the right. Well, these are both propane tanks. The 100-pound propane tank to scale is on the left, and the 20-pound propane tank is on the right. And that is an actual to scale 20-pound propane tank. Those things are super tiny. How I get them to print's beyond me too. But they print very well. On the left there is out back at my Blackstone flat top grill. I took the measurements off of it and made it to scale, made a flat top grill, and that's a Mueller designed after a Mueller fire hydrant to scale. And that's what I install for a living. So that, all of them get a good idea.
So this is great. You've got a combination of a 20-pound propane tank and a grill. So you got a great,
perfect for the
very
backyard.
Yep.
These here are actual boxes of fruit. On the left, I don't know how well you can see it there, is actually long neck pumpkins. These are actually designed for in like a cold storage warehouse for stacks, like they're transporting them out of a truck into it or something. But they're the ones that you would carry by hand, not the big modern crates that go on jacks or anything. But I got them in different, got those and round fruit, the round fruit or whatever you want them to be. They're meant, they're in three different heights, both of them in 3 high, 4 high, and 5 high. And if you take notice, they're kind of they're not squared on purpose. They're meant to look like they've been sitting there for a little while and the weight has gotten to the stacks of boxes, so they're kind of twisted and mangled a little bit, given under the weight. Yep. On the right is just a dumpster that you would see it like outside of a dollar store or McDonald's or something, or basically anywhere. That I designed on my own. And on the left, I designed that also. I call it just a chemical tank. It's one of them IBC tanks with the wire framing around it. I see them in the construction industry a lot, holding DEF fluid and other chemicals. Yep. There on the left is my my edition of house electrical meters, with a on the side like a cable box, so you always see them in the same location, so I kind of made it like a combo. And then my good friend at Dave Trone at the West Penn Model Railroad Family Lines designed those twin tank air compressors. I need a new picture of them too. They're a little shiny. I needed to clean them up a little bit, I think. And just so you guys know that when you see it shiny like that, that is because you didn't empty your cleaning solution early enough. Still great. You just need to empty your cleaning solution. But he designed them for his railroad. And then you can go to the next slide. Up top there on the top left is my Jersey barriers. They're scale 15-foot Jersey barriers. And my designed after the old parking meters that I saw in Hanover, PA growing up as a kid. Saw them everywhere around town. The single meters. They're old 1950s and 1960s designs. And then in the top right is is your parking bumper. And if you take notice on the top faintly with that picture, it's really clear. There are actually holes for rebar, and they are clear through. You can actually put a piece of brass in there and make it look like they're held down by rebar in real life. Yep. And then here on the left is my it's actually designed after a Cobalt toolbox. What's neat this week called it Snap-on, but it's actually designed after a Cobalt toolbox. That came right out of my garage. I measured it all up and designed it. And if you notice, underneath each one of them drawer handles, it's actually curves up in like a door, like an actual drawer handle. If you flip it upside down, you can actually put your fingernail up in there. So if you put some weathering and whatnot and make it look greasy and dirty, it'll actually show up. And then on the right is I just call them a raw material rack because you can use them inside, outside. Really, it's same thing that I have in my garage for my wood. But that is, I just call it a raw material rack. these come in 3 different sizes. These are the old, I call them steam radiators. They're the steam radiators that you see in houses for heating, old houses. I have 3 sizes. Here's on the left is the long, on the right is the middle, and I have another one, so I call the short. It's only take two ribs off of the medium, and you get the short. So, and then here on the left is an orchard crate. I call it an orchard crate. You can use it as any crate. I just commonly see it. I'm out in the country where I'm at, so I commonly see it at orchards. And on the right is another Dave Trone design of the hand jack. And if I unfortunately didn't get a picture of it upside down, there are actually the wheels on the forks on the bottom side. You can actually see them when you flip them over. Then here, I guess on the left, a lot of people call them a jerry can. I just call them a plastic fuel jug, because they can be used for anything, for camping, water, gas, anything you want. But that's a fuel can. And then on the right is a rooftop AC, more for the industrial. So it's a little bit larger. It's more for an industrial building. I am in the process of designing one myself that is a window AC for in buildings. But that has the start of the duct work to go with it. And then here is on the left that's an HO scale mailbox. And on the right are just spilled trash cans. You can, and if you take notice to those spilled trash cans, I just let it be because I think it adds character. But in that middle one, on the very top, you see it looks like a little chunk missing out of it. And they turn out that way sometimes because, resin's not always perfect. Let's put it that way. But most time, little things like that, I let it be because it adds character to your layout. And then here is on the left, I just call that a shop storage shelf. Now that would be a scale to the very top of the pieces on the top. That's a scale 6 foot tall. That is just for you see it in your garage, in any actual business garage or whatnot. It's really good that we actually have some of them on our layout at the Keystone Southern Railroad. We actually have them in our engine house. It looks like oil jugs and whatnot, And then on the right, I just call that a whiskey barrel bench. And just whiskey barrels, like somebody just threw up a quick couple slatted boards across the top of it to make it look useful for working outside. It can go anywhere. And then here on the left is another design by Dave Trone. They're 80-pound concrete bags, a skid of 80-pound concrete bags. And on the right, just loose trash bags that look filled to throw in any city scene, any town scene to dirty up the scene. And then here, if you pay attention, look at there on the Coca-Cola. Now, this is where it really floors a lot of people is I actually have one of them right here. You're not going to be able to see the size, but in reference to the size of my hand, okay? That's a scale 1960s Coca-Cola machine, one of the bottled machine. And looking at it with your naked eye, you can literally read the Coca-Cola, the 10 cents and the ice cold. And these, that's the printing quality that I try to achieve. I actually run with a 14K screen, so it gets extremely high detail. Those that you're seeing there on the screen are were done in 50 UM. Mine are now done in 20, so the detail is even richer. Yep. That's not showing again.
Okay, hang on.
I mean, we don't have to go through them all, but here on the right, you ever go out to Home Depot and see those big tall storage racks, the orange shelves, green posts? That's what that's designed for. I used to work at a place that in the Sheridan Press in Hanover, PA. They do printing, and all their storage racks in their warehouse were like that. And that's actually a scale, HO scale, 16 feet tall. Which I shortened it a little bit from what my knowledge remembering was. I mean, those were ones in Sheridan were over 20 feet tall, but I shortened it a little bit, thinking it might be a little too tall for some people to put in HO stuff. So that's designed a lot for like in an Amazon building or even outside of a building to put anything on. And then here on the left is just a park bench. It's a blurry picture because my focus didn't want to focus well when I took that picture. It comes in handy, especially at train stations. I find a lot of people like to put them at train stations. And then on the right are I just call them wood 8-slat skids. They're the standard skids. Keep in mind, a lot of these prints that you see that have small pieces on, like we'll say that bench there, I use what they call a structural resin. That it has a lot of flexibility to it. And if you look back up here at my screen, I'll hold up one of these, hold up my warehouse bench, warehouse shelving, and watch how I can bend it. And it goes right back, okay? Without breaking. The reason I do that is obviously, you don't want your stuff to break, you want it to be able to withstand some pressure and some wear and tear and abuse. So it benefits the modeler and the shipping process. Yep. And here's just a collection of things. I have since added skids of cinder blocks. And I have added modern soda machines. One thing that I didn't see on there yet is I have an highly detailed workshop bench, wood bench for the wood shop. And here's one thing that you guys, this is up and coming, and this is a proprietary deal. A signal bridge. This signal bridge, I can show it. I can't sell it yet. It's actually a proprietary deal from the UP. I had a guy from the University of Arizona contact me from their architectural division. The UP had gone to them about possibly designing a new signal bridge for them that it's kind of like a modular deal. And don't look, anything special, but yet. But he couldn't print them. And he contacted me and asked me if I could print him 5 of them for their models to go to the UP. Yeah, sure. Why not? So I did. And I sent him a price. And he contacted me back. He goes, if I talk to the UP and here at the University of Arizona, we get the right, can we, do you, instead of me paying you for them, do you want the proprietary rights if they allow it? Well, yeah, why not? A week later, I get an email from the UP and an email from the University of Arizona with a signed contract that I have proprietary rights to print it. Unfortunately, I can't print it until the UP gives me permission because they want to get one built and on their lines first. So what's cool about that one is it's modular, so it can go. Right now, this is for a double track main. It can actually get shortened off right here, go for a single track, or you can bring the upright and put it over here and have it as a full signal bridge, just the way they designed it. So that's a cool little feature. There's the wood shop workbench. As you can, I was explaining, with a lot of high detail to it. And then they're the Jordan trucks that Jim Mooney had given me to print, giving me the files. I asked him if he would do a couple slight modifications to them so that they're not the same as what he had before. And I'm just talking little minor things underneath the bottom. They're still going to have all those same designs. But they're all, they're all late resin printed. You have on there, you have an old pack car, right? There's the pack car, the one that's not painted. And then there's the frame. Gonna add a couple more things to it to give a little bit more detail to it. But they'll be coming out here in the future in both HO hopefully O scale, and I'm even thinking about S scale. Yep. And then all the beds are interchangeable on all the trucks. So you can, that's what they did back then. Nobody built them as a company. They built their own and put them on whatever truck they had, So all the beds are interchangeable. And I'm adding new products every week. I'm open to customer suggestions. So whatever anybody has any ideas. One of the things that I think that I'm actually working on right now are, they call them Hayes wheel stops. I don't know if anybody heard of them. They're little stops that go on the wheel stops that go on the rail that actually clip on the rail. And they clip on the rail. If you want to put super glue on to hold them, you can, but they're meant to clip on the rail and stay on the rail, and they work for code 83, code 100, and code 70. Yep.
Steve, that was great. It's absolutely wonderful to see how the technology is enabling, someone who's innovative to make some great designs. Any questions for Steve? Maybe got any questions, comments? I guess you could also make
no questions, but I'm definitely going to be in touch with you, Steve, about ordering a few of those things.
Thank you, Greg. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, you've got
not so much of a question, but a comment for you is that I started out the same way, just a little Facebook thing, and next thing you know, 2.5 years later, it's wide open. So just keep in mind, if that's how it's going now, you're doing something right. Keep at it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It can be stressful at times because I'm like, I sit there and sometimes you have days where it's like nothing's coming in and then all of a sudden you get slammed. Actually, I just saw an email pop up with another 5 orders while we were talking, and I'm like, oh, all right, that's cool. Guess I got to get back to work after I get off of here.
Hang in there. It gets fun.
Yes, I'm sure. If I need any advice, I'll talk to you.
I don't know what I can offer.
And on the workbench, I got a kick out of the radio and the electrical switch. That was cool.
Thank you.
So I have a comment. I'm doing ON30 stuff and, of course, steam era. So anything in 20s, 30s, early 40s, pre-war, I'm interested in. I've gotten vehicles from many places that are printing them out there. Most of them have decent detail. The biggest problem I've found is the frames distort from the weight of the model.
Yep.
They'll bow down in the middle. And they're kind of delicate. Some of them are kind of delicate, so you break off wheels and I need something that's durable because I'm doing modular layouts and going to the, train meets and stuff like that. So I'm interested in detail in any of the detail parts. People are making detail parts, but a lot of it's from the 50s and 60s. And of course, O scale stuff, you got, of course, a big audience there. So that pre-war stuff to me seems like there's a little bit of lacking in that type, detail stuff, Coke machines, all this stuff seems to be newer than that. Like I said, 50s and 60s.
It
So
is. You're right. There's a lot that is like that. As what you're talking about with like durability and stuff. That's one of the reasons I actually use multiple different kinds of resins. I use a darker resin, which is it's just a standard resin for objects that don't need flexibility. They're a solid piece. However, like I said, with the warehouse rack, that's thin. I've had that warehouse rack that I showed you guys on here. I literally printed that 2 years ago. That's my personal warehouse rack. I use a structural resin for that. That is supposed to be for anti-warping. What a lot of people don't realize in a lot of these printing companies, that's the unfortunate part about just anybody popping up. There's only a few of us out there that are truly, I would call, professional because of the knowledge they have. And they would all tell you the same thing I tell you if you ask them. Some of them may not, simply because they want to treat it as it's a proprietary deal. They don't want their information out. This is a hobby. Yeah, I mean, we're here to share information. That's how I look at it. And if somebody wants to try to print what I do, go at it. I got more experience at it than they do. They'll be coming to me for questions anyway. I use a structural resin, and it's all about when you cure it and how you cure it and the resin you use. Like I said, there's a reason I use a structural resin. It is, one, drillable and tappable. That's just an added benefit. But the real reason I use it is the strength, the flexibility, and the tensile strength on it. And its ability to resist warping over periods of time. However, that only works with this resin if you cure it properly. That's why I was saying, when you take it up, when you print it, I wash it, and then I remove it from the supports. Removing it from the supports right after you wash it takes all stresses out of that product, because when you cure it on supports, it builds stress into the product. It has nowhere to give. So as soon as you take it off the products, it wants to warp like a Boeing record. A record that's in heat, that was in the heat all day long. It bows. Has nothing, it can't, it has to. This would do the same thing if you let it on the supports when you cure it. The other thing is the amount of time you cure it. A lot of people think that the thinner it is, the less time you got to cure it. That's actually very false. You need to cure it slow and long. So I cure mine after taking it off the supports, even thin material, for well over 15 to 20 minutes. Most people only cure it for 1 to 2.
Super. Well, that's great info. I mean, I think that's the perspective of, doing this professionally. You learn a lot of things, and it makes it much better than people doing it at home.
Yes.
Well, thanks, Steve. We really appreciate it. That was great. And one of the things that it's always interesting, that one of the comments I always see people make about model railroads is how amazing the railroad looks like because of the detail. I think that's in many ways what makes it. So it's great to see you bringing some cool products to market, and look for more in the future. So with that, we will thank you.
If you don't mind, I'll let everybody know that if you are interested and you want to know what's going on, keep up with what I'm coming out with, you go on to 3gresinprints.com and go to the bottom of the homepage. There is a newsletter. You can actually sign up, and when I come out with new things, or you have any questions, hit contact me. I will answer your stuff. It's just me. So you're getting direct answers from me. and I'll keep you up to date as to what I'm coming out with. Anything that has changed on the business end of it. And my goal is any returning customers over amount of time, I want to start a rewards deal program with them where they would get rewards, automatically get a reward, discount off or whatnot. And I also honor the veterans, and the veterans get a 20% discount right away, and emergency personnel, police, and you retired or not, you get a 10% right off the top.
Super. Well, thanks again. Well, so that brings us now to our last segment for this evening, which is going to be a video of the sawmill in Marin. And here we go. So as we run this video, I'll introduce this. This was a tour to the video to Sturgeon's Mill by the PCR. And
I already got the hook. I already did that. Are you good? I see what Jay wants to that side.
Blow the whistle.
Oh, good job. Blow the whistle? It's on this side. Oh. Yeah, they're carrying it. Guys, this is where we can support it. We don't want too much over there. We'll find out. Yeah, let's do it.
Mom's on here to yell at us.
No. Just a little bit.
It's going to go the rest of the day.
Carriage that way. Carriage won't go anymore that way. We won't go anymore. We're already bumped out, so we're perfect. All right. What if we just use the BD to push it? We can do that. You want to hold the hookup?
talk about this thing over there. come over here to work. Okay.
Brake on. Let me pick it up.
This is the planer they're actually used, not the one up in the sawmill. And it had stopped running by the time I got to this video. So that was a little tour of an actual steam sawmill. Hope everyone enjoyed that. Anybody got any comments? Any observations?
What is the product they produce used for?
I think it's used primarily for demonstration.
Oh, okay.
They actually will do some cut wood. It's primarily redwood. They get redwood from the local area and cut it, and you can actually go to them and buy cut redwood. I don't know. I didn't talk to them about how easy it is to get it or how expensive it is, but they do actually sell what they cut. So I think they are actually cutting it for a purpose. Seems like, and they're obviously planing it down to a specific size.
Very neat.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool to see the kind of whole operation, and I don't know if anybody noticed. I mean, what I found intriguing the first time I went through was if you go back and look at the shot of the steam motor, the steam engine, and especially when you hear when something's going on when the wood goes through, it actually bogs down, and you can actually see the spinning balls of the governor. That when it slows down, they get closer, and that opens the valve and gives it more steam. And of course, that's where that great term "balls to the wall" comes from, which is when the balls are all the way out, you're at maximum speed. So you're balls to the wall. So anyway, that basically brings us to the end of tonight's program. What I'd like to do is introduce Father Ron. Father Ron's going to give us a little invocation and be thankful for this amazing world we get to model. So, Father Ron, I'll throw it over to you.
Master Maker of the universe, our scale models imitate your creative spirit, and we learn the genius of your handiwork. Teach us to appreciate all you have made. Amen.
Thank you, Father Ron. And we look forward to the next segment of your build. We found the first part of your brining facility great. Look forward to the next part. So thanks much. With that, we come now to our caboose for the night. And this is a fun little caboose. You'll find it interesting. And I imagine that was quite an experience to be right next to that when it got hit. So thank you all for attending tonight and being part of New Tracks Live. Look forward to seeing you all next week, same time here on YouTube and also on Facebook. And hopefully everybody will have a great week. Thanks and good night.